Welcome to Camp Nightmare Fuel with Brian Barber, Barb Hartman, and Lord Starfox.
Welcome to Camp Nightmare Fuel. Grab your favorite beverage and take a seat around the campfire. I'm Barb Hartman, one of the camp counselors here at Camp Nightmare Fuel, and I'm joined by my fellow camp counselors, Lord Starfox and Brian Barber. Before we end our show tonight, I'm going to be telling you how you can find all three of us. But before we get started, let's say hello to them. How are you doing tonight, Lord Starfox?
Miss Hartman, it's really great to re-link up with you after a good old episode of Midnight Lycanthropy, and I just, had to make my way through the darkness and convince Jason Voorhees to chill out for a bit while we are going to meet around the campfire.
Jason, oh God, dude, go back to your own camp, right? How are you doing tonight, Brian?
It's funny you bring up Jason because I live 10 miles from Crystal Lake. So other than that, I actually kind of flipped through pictures from the Bigfoot expedition taking the dog yesterday, and they weren't happy I took my dog.
Really? What did they do?
They peed next to my car just before we got back to it. And they scratched from one side of my trunk to the other.
Whoa.
With 17-inch imprints in the leaves going from where they peed, because as gross as this sounds, I get back and I see the scratch. I'm like, what the F? And I see the imprints and I look over and there's a wet area. And I went, at first I thought it was just a trick of the light, but then you could see it drying in the sun. So I knew it was fresh, and looked up and looked around. It's like, that's exactly where he peed, but it was way over, my dog's only 6 inches tall. And,
wow, that's wild.
2 feet up off the ground, and you could see it drying. It was like, son of a gun. So I don't think they were happy with my dog.
Do you think they were, or I wonder if, why wouldn't they, maybe they were interested and didn't know how, I don't know, maybe they didn't, they're like, what is that? Because they probably have never seen a little bundle of cuteness like that. Do you have one of our babies, Brian?
Yeah, really.
I mean, I wonder.
Everybody takes labs and stuff out there. I've never seen another small dog.
Yeah.
And maybe they thought, oh, you're going to mark your territory. Well, I'll show you.
Your tiny little bear. Oh my goodness.
Their bladder is much bigger than my whole dog's.
That's right. The wonders of dealing with Sasquatch, right? Oh gosh. Yeah. It's I can't even get into all that's going on with my situation. I will eventually. I'll fill you guys in, but gosh, it's like, woo, it's crazy. With this house and the new, our main house, that sounds pretentious, the main house. No, I mean the house we live in and the house we're going to eventually rent out, right? That's our, connection. And before we open the doors to the Winchester Mystery House, I kind of want to talk about and ask you guys, have you ever been in a house or a building that kind of just felt wrong? Maybe not actually haunted per se, but confusing, makes you a little bit out of sorts, dizzying, deliberately strange. I can tell you that I have experienced this a few times in my life. We've bought and sold about, I think, 14, 15 homes with our, moving with our jobs. And when we're in the market for a house, I always have to warn our realtors, or my husband does, I may get this feeling either driving up, or maybe we walk in the house and forget it. If I get this feeling that I get, I'm not ever going to be interested in this house, right? I don't want to waste anybody's time. One time I had some feelings of anxiety doing a walkthrough on a house, but it was such a beautiful location. And I really tried to push the feelings, out of my mind. But man, when we got to the primary bedroom, I looked at my husband, the realtor. I'm like, nope. and I just literally had to leave the house. And another thing, like many years ago, we were invited to a friend's new housewarming, right? And I don't want to give any more detail. I don't think she watched the show, but I don't want to identify her. Anyway, but when I crossed the threshold into her kitchen, I got such a horrible feeling. It was like a wall of bad energy. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I couldn't really even concentrate. And it was so weird because it's one of those things that is completely out of the blue. I was so excited to be there and see our other friends, but I was like, oh, I got to leave. And I looked at my husband and I got to get out of the house. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I have one of those feelings. And he's like, Barb, I just opened this beer. I'm like, well, you know what? Take it with us and I'll drive, but we got to get out of here. And I pretended like I got a phone call that I had to go home. That's so terrible. But, but it is, the weird thing is I did not get that feeling when we were walking into the two houses that I talked about in the previous Camp Nightmare Fuel episodes, Haunted Hell, The Nightmare Within. I didn't get those feelings. Now, Star Fox, I believe you said you really haven't ever had any paranormal experiences, right? But have you ever had this sort of feeling when you entered a place or a building?
Wow, pretty gnarly stuff right there. Yes, you are correct. I have never had any sort of cryptid, paranormal, extraterrestrial, woo. No, none of that for myself. If you've ever heard, I believe Mr. Barber and I covered it, the two instances where I potentially dealt with some psychotic and deranged human beings. Well, my science team and I have been churning around a nice little theory now about how the bacteria in your gut, well, when we are so naive and stupid to listen to our brain and our hearts potentially that are like, hey, you're in some trouble. Well, the living bacteria in our stomach is like the last resort where it's like, yo, you guys are so stupid right now. Something bad is going to happen. And I don't want to be a part of this. So you get that feeling in your stomach, right? I did feel strange in those two instances. Yet the only other time I didn't feel like I was in trouble, but just with the whole lore of the area in the Bridgewater Triangle, where deep in the forest down there was this old like cabin or I don't even know, hut or whatever you would like to call it. And when you would go in, there was like this strange basement down there where supposedly people would do like these strange ceremonies. I found it to be interesting. Yeah, obviously when all your buddies are telling these, I don't know, creepypastas or urban legends, because I, at that point in time, obviously couldn't verify any of it. Fast forward, yes, that type of stuff has happened in the Bridgewater Triangle. Did it happen there? Still don't know. So, right. But either way, it was pretty interesting being inside the Bridgewater Triangle and in this strange building. But that would probably be as close to being able to, I guess, relate to what you had asked.
Did you get any feelings when or were you just like, okay, this is like, the power of suggestion. I'm feeling this way because everybody's talking about this. Or did you literally feel like a weird sensation?
Great question right there. Sitting here with both of you beautiful individuals now, I would say the power of influence, yet being obviously a little bit younger at that point in time. And yeah, being, more spooked. And give an example, now when you watch like the movie Urban Legend, you're like, dude, that is so terrible. Or when darkness falls, right? But rewind a little bit. At that point in time when I saw those type of movies, I was around that age of, I don't know, it just gets the mind ticking a little bit. So obviously, like I said, when you're out there and you've just seen things of the Patterson and Gimlin footage, and I'm a artist and a creative individual, I think I always just kind of get that feeling when I go out in the woods just because of my imagination.
Good point. Yep. I gotcha. What about you, Brian? Have you ever had any type of an experience like that?
With gut feelings?
Yeah, kind of, you going into a place and you get a weird gut feeling. And I'm not talking about, okay, going into a house that looks terrible or like a crack house or something like that. And you're not going to get a pleasant feeling. A situation where you really, you really shouldn't have any bias, and maybe even you're excited about going to the place, but then you get there and you're like, have you ever had something like that happen?
Oh yeah, and dealing with certain gym members or potential gym members, you do
Gotcha.
this long enough, you can catch a vibe off somebody. It's like you don't want to. Okay, this probably isn't a good fit. I'm not really going to push the sales this hard on this one. You got to kind of read them out, but definitely, out bigfooting for sure. There have been nights where, and as both of you know, most of my experiences out there are 85% positive, but there are times where I'll make that 45-minute drive, get there, get out of the car, and it's like, nope, not tonight. Get right back in and drive out, because it's like, something's telling me don't do it. It's going to be an awful night for you.
Yes, I get, and you know what? I have never had an experience like that, except for, well, I should say my first time with that type of a thing. I'm talking with Sasquatch last week, and this really bummed me out because it was an area that I really wanted to show my my son-in-law for the most part. It was an area that my husband and I found, and it's really just a really cool it's in DNR land, Department of Natural Resources land, and there's a big area. I'm sure I had told you guys of this bleached wood, probably because of the salt air, and there's no shade whatsoever. It's really, everything is like almost pure white, and it looks like a boneyard or something. It's really cool looking. We had been hiking for a while, and we were enjoying ourselves. It was my husband and I, and my daughter and her husband and their dog, or Gasher. And so we're hiking around, and I'm like, okay, I want to show you guys this. And so we're going up in there, and my daughter starts saying, Mom, I don't like this. I'm getting a bad feeling. I'm like, what do you mean, honey? And she's like, I don't know. And we look up at the trees, and the trees are like, it was getting windy, and the trees were swaying back and forth. And I'm like, you know what, when we get a little bit deeper in, they're not going to be doing this because there's going to be wind breaks because the forest is a little bit more tight. And she's like, okay, all right. So we're walking, and all of a sudden it was that feeling of, like I said, that almost that wall of negative energy. And I was like, whoa. I'm like, okay, all right, I know what you mean. And she's like, see, Mom, you should have listened to me, right? And we turned around and came home because I was starting to feel really bad. So that was a bummer. But that really is kind of that I'm talking about with the Winchester Mystery House. I have been there. And I have to say, I really didn't get any bad feelings going in or seeing it, really any negative feelings through the whole thing. I was kind of in awe as we started the tour. I had heard so much about it over the years, and it was a very, very odd sensation being not only in the house, but on the grounds. I was amazed to find that this house itself and this property, which if you do any research on it, I was just imagining it to kind of be out in the middle of the country. I don't know, but it's actually like within the city of San Jose, California. And it gives you like Disney haunted mansion vibes. It's absolutely gorgeous and very like magical looking, like old Hollywood. Well, the mansion is Victorian style. It is, and it's kept in absolutely perfect condition by the trust that runs and maintains it. So the Winchester Mystery House, Victorian mansion, known for its bizarre architectural features, including staircases that lead nowhere, windows that open not to the outside, but to the inside. You open it and there you're in another room. Secret passages, stairways to nowhere. There's a door that is, I believe it says door to nowhere. You open the door and you're on the second or third floor. So you don't want to be taking that tour. So these features, they kind of they contribute to the feeling of being lost and disoriented within the house, which some believes is due to the presence, of spirits. The owner of the home was Sarah Winchester, and she was the heir to the Winchester Repeating Rifle fortune, who reportedly had built the house in San Jose to appease the spirits of those unalived by Winchester rifles. She kind of believed a psychic that had told her that she herself was haunted, and the house was built supposedly to confuse and to house these spirits. In 1881, Sarah Winchester lost her husband, William Wirt Winchester, to tuberculosis. He was the founder of Winchester Repeating Arms Company.
They were manufacturers of the gun that won the West. That's what they're referred to.
William was only 43 at the time of his death. And just a few years before William died, they buried their only child, Annie, a baby taken by
Marasmus.
It is a severe form of malnutrition. Annie was just a few weeks old when she passed away. And, her parents were well-to-do, well-educated, and they had the best doctors, but the doctors, they did not know what to do to help Annie. So, the baby basically just wasted away until she passed. So a terrible, terrible, tragic thing. Then that was their only child, despite, them wanting to have children. William Winchester's death left Sarah as the sole heir up to the company. So at that point, Sarah was all alone and she was inconsolable. So she turned to a spiritualist in Boston, Massachusetts, hoping for answers. Now, according to certain legends, this medium told her that her family was cursed, haunted by restless souls of those whose lives had been taken by Winchester rifles. Now, the following is a popular version of the story, but this has not, been definitively proven. It's just a version. Sarah was supposedly told by mediums she consulted with on a regular basis that the only way to appease the restless spirits that haunted her was to build a house and continue to add on to it. Build a house forever and ever and never stop. In 1886, Sarah moved west to San Jose, California. She purchased an unfinished farmhouse and began a construction project that would span 38 years, day and night. She hired crews to build literally nonstop, 24 hours a day. She had no master blueprint. She really had no plan. Just continued constant chaotic construction, often directed by Sarah herself after her nightly seance. So she would, come out the next morning to the foreman and say, oh, okay, stop. Now I'm going to have you build another staircase. She believed that the spirits gave her instructions on how to build. Now again, this is according to the legend. Some she wanted to appease them, but some she wanted to confuse them. But so what's the result? This is a house like no other. It has 160 rooms. It has 10,000 windows. It has 47 fireplaces, 2 basements, and one very perplexing floor plan. There's windows in the floor and even a room built entirely inside another room.
Now, as I said, according to this version of the legend, this was all done to confuse the angry spirits that haunted her.
But here's the thing, not all historians buy this ghostly explanation. Some believe that Sarah Winchester was simply a wealthy, eccentric woman, a patron of the arts, a private grieving soul with endless resources and no need for approval. Sarah was also an architect, and a gifted and innovative architect, she has been referred to. The bizarre design may not have been about ghosts, but about experimentation, spiritual symbolism, or simply the byproduct
of ongoing renovations with really no limitations.
Some say Sarah herself never left, her spirit still wandering the maze that she built.
But many claim it is haunted, and there is quite an extensive history of this.
But as I said, I never got a negative feeling anywhere in the weird house. I visited the location with my son and daughter-in-law in April of 2019. And again, I can attest to the weirdness. Visitors today report cold spots, ghostly whispers, and an eerie sensation of being watched. There's a particularly weird room. This is the only room that I was like, okay, this is really weird.
It's referred to as the witch's hat or the witch's cap, and it has a conical shaped ceiling, and it's in one of the turrets of the upper level of the house. And although it's not actually an attic per se, the placement of it in the home, and it's on the upper level, and you get this feeling when you're in the room as if the seclusion that you would get in an attic. Also, the room is painted solid black. And the acoustics are so weird, the way that it's shaped. A whisper can echo or sound like it's amplified. That room is said to be a favorite amongst paranormal investigators. And when we were there, it really the tour went off the rails because people wanted to spend so much time in there.
And you guys know that I said, that I'm sensitive. So let me tell you about what we experienced on the day we toured the house. Now, there was a group of about 10 of us on the tour, and our tour guide was amazing, hilarious. I think, they're all great
Entertainers,
And he was full of incredible information. The tour guests all laughed nervously when he was telling the stories about, various spirits that were said to haunt the Winchester house. But I have to say, I felt so bad for the family walking in front of us. It's like a guided walking tour, and that it was a mother and a father with their teenage daughter. And the girl was pretty spooked, and her parents and all of us around her were trying to make her feel better. Her father was making lots of jokes and trying to make light of the whole situation. Now, it was quite a long tour, and although I empathize with the parents, right, and the young girl, the behavior of the father and the daughter started to get kind of old, like pretty fast. She was like way too dramatic, and he was, joking way too much. As we were right behind them, whispered to my son, who was becoming very visibly annoyed, that maybe we should just hang back a little from the family, so our experience wasn't ruined. I mean, the tours aren't cheap. So, I didn't want our money wasted and our experience to be taken away from. So we entered a part of the home that to me felt like it was the most disturbing area. It felt sort of like if you go into a fun house, and I kind of felt anxious. I felt this like anxiety starting to build, and I was becoming like kind of increasingly nervous that something was about to happen. Suddenly the father in front of us, he kind of like lurches forward very violently, but was able to catch himself from actually falling. Immediately, he looks up at the ceiling and he grabbed the top of his head. This is kind of like, it was disruptive, not in a bad way, because thank God the guy didn't fall, but it was just like, everybody's like, whoa, what's going on? Because it was loud when he tripped. And his family, and those of us around were all saying, hey, are you all right, dude? And he told us, and he's laughing very nervously, that he had felt something from above push him violently on the top of his head, but then also he said he felt like on the back of the shoulders too. And this all was at the same time. And he's like, I don't believe in any of this stuff. And his wife's going, no, I don't believe in it either. And then for the rest of the tour, he and his daughter were, they didn't really say anything. And his wife was like, oh, she looked a little bit nervous too. But I feel like she was like, I told you. I don't know, but that's kind of how I felt, like, whoa, I think that the spirits were not happy with his behavior. Now, over the years, both visitors and staff have reported various experiences that suggest paranormal activity. These include hearing footsteps, feeling icy chills, seeing doorknobs turn themselves, and even temporarily losing sight. There is one specific story, and the tour guide had talked about this very extensively with us. It's a ghost called Clyde.
He is described as having a mustache and appearing in period workman's clothing, pushing a wheelbarrow, or just generally keeping a presence in the basement's boiler rooms.
Employees and visitors claim to have seen him, further, solidifying the belief in the house's haunted nature. The Winchester Mystery House has become a significant part of pop culture, and its reputation as a haunted location has been further amplified by media coverage and tours. It's been the subject of many popular social media and mainstream cable, television ghost hunting and paranormal teams. The subject of movies and, just lots of documentaries and shows, which is what drew me, to it. I wanted to go there. The Winchester Mystery House isn't just a building. It's a monument to a mystery. The mansion forged by grief, or was it expanded by guilt and perhaps inhabited by ghosts? Or, again, what I said, was that just something that came in due to the nightly seances that Sarah Winchester herself had? So I want to before we wrap this up, I just want to talk about the myth versus reality. While the story of Sarah Winchester building the house to appease spirits is a popular narrative, some historians argue that her motivations, like I said, may be way more complex and have been included in other factors, like her grief over her husband's death. That would be, I'm thinking, you're lonely and your mind's just working, that maybe just to busy herself. Whatever truth lies behind its walls, one thing is certain: the house, it doesn't want to be understood. And maybe that's exactly the point.
Sarah Winchester was extremely close to her niece, Marion Marriott, who was the daughter of Sarah's sister. And Marion lived with Sarah for many years after Sarah's husband and baby daughter passed away.
And eventually, it was turned over to this trust, and it's just beautifully kept and managed. And I would really suggest that if you ever get to San Jose, California, to that area, to the Bay Area, make sure that you stop in for a visit.
So before we wrap up this episode, I want to ask my fellow camp counselors
what they've been up to and where we can find them. So Lord Star Fox, now we know that you are on Midnight Lycanthropy. That's your YouTube channel, but you are also expanding, and I'm not sure how much you can say. Where can our viewers find you?
Well, great stuff right there. And we still need to churn the good old pot a tad bit on what you had said. So before we do wrap this up, throw it back my way. I have some interesting stuff to add on. Yeah, you can, of course, find our content pretty much everywhere. The good old Midnight Society, including Miss Barb Hartman and Bigfoot's Barbershop. On YouTube, yes, it is Midnight Lycanthropy and the good old playlist that is Camp Nightmare Fuel.
Brian Barber, what have you been up to? We heard a little bit at the beginning of the show about your Bigfoot excursion with your little puppy bear and how that turned out. Is there anything else you want to share with us about what you've been doing? And also, where can our viewers and our listeners find you?
The Bigfooting's been the big one. Working on some health issues has been the main consumption of my time. But we're back, obviously, with Bigfoot season and updating the YouTube channel finally a little bit. Hopefully getting on a set schedule over on Bigfoot Outlaw on Friday nights at 9 p.m. So I got some exciting guests coming up over there. You have to come check it out. J-Mac from Bigfoot Input is going to be over there. So that's going to be an exciting one.
Very cool.
Podcast, because the last time he did one, it kind of went stinker on him. So he's got a sour taste in his mouth, but he's agreed to give it one more try. So we'll see how that goes.
I'm sure he'll have nothing but a pleasant experience with you.
So Star Fox, what did you want to tell us? I can't wait to hear this.
I just wanted to say, no, this is all great stuff we covered, but every time I think of the Winchesters, of course, I end up thinking about Sam and Dean from Supernatural.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, of course, nerd life. No, I just wanted to see what people think about this. She obviously found things to be intriguing and dealt with supposedly trauma and etc. But was this verified to be? I've heard of this numerous times, and I know it's verified as what we just spoke about. But I mean, was there any great investigators like Ed and Lorraine Warren or anybody at that point in time that was able to verify this potentially? Or do we think maybe she was just out of her mind? Or so bizarre?
Yeah, that's a good point. I know that there have been, I don't know if Ed and Lorraine Warren had ever investigated. I'm going to have to ask JJ Messenger, who is, he's also a member, right, of Midnight Society on your channel, Midnight Lycanthropy. I'm going to have to ask him if he knows, because he worked with Lorraine and after Ed had passed away, and he knew a great deal. But I know that there's been many other, the guys from that do Ghost Adventures, they've been there, and I believe, and Ghost Hunters. There's been a lot. So I think that there's been a lot of investigation. However, whether what her motivation was, I definitely don't think that it's a situation where she was like completely, out of her mind. Because even though it is the construction, is chaotic, a good explanation for that would be that you are trying to confuse spirits, or spirits are telling you what to do, because she was a very gifted and innovative architect. And this was taken from people that knew her and maybe had worked with her. And that's kind of something that's really cool in that day and age, right? To have that, to have somebody that's that creative and was able to study that. And, you can, when you're constructing a house or doing something, I mean, yes, there's people that aren't they could, they're not talented whatsoever. So you can just make up something and it ends up looking terrible. Right. All of the construction really, I mean, it's, it's like, it really does, it's quality, and it really, as weird as it all looks, it all kind of just fits. One of the things that was so interesting, there's so many stairs because it's 3 levels. And she really wanted to go into all of the, all the levels.
Sarah Winchester did have an elevator in the home, and that was very advanced for that day and age, extremely advanced. And she did use it quite frequently to reach all of the levels.
But she had severe arthritis, so she did have a hard time walking as she started to age, and it was very comfortable, like walking up three sets of stairs because of the way that they're constructed. That, to me, I said to my husband, if we ever have to put in stairs, I want to do that, because I have arthritis and it, it's getting harder to walk upstairs, and I hate that, and I don't have a problem with it, just walking on a flat surface. But if you're talking about steep stairs, sometimes it gets painful. And the way that this is constructed, it was very comfortable to be walking up these stairs.
But to your question, I think it's a little bit of a combination of, just a very innovative, creative mind and the circumstances that she found herself in.
That just kept this going for her. I don't know. What do you think about that, Brian? What do you have thoughts on it?
I'm curious as to, are all the rooms open now?
No, they're not. And you know what? And honestly, the house, it is so big. You couldn't do a tour in one day. No, there was a couple of rooms only that we saw. It was like top to, we started on the main floor, I believe, in the the foyer, the main 2 doors that you walk in, and took a little kind of around 2 rooms maybe, and then we immediately went up to the 2nd floor, did some up to the 3rd floor, a little tour. That's where the guy was hit and or supposedly hit and pushed that man in front of me. And then we quickly went back down to one of the basements and took a little tour. And that was maybe 3 hours, 4 hours. It was a long tour. So, or it would be really cool if you did have access to the whole house, but
that's what I was wondering, the seance room.
We did not go into the actual seance room. I believe that it was being, renovated, but they did hold seances in that witch's hat area.
Because Winchester's always, I looked and last I knew they were still opening rooms in 2016 where they talked about opening some attic where she boarded it up in 1902.
Yes.
Because of being trapped by an earthquake and thought the spirits were getting her. She was trapped there for days or something.
The house did sustain significant damage in the front portion of it. Sarah was sleeping in a bedroom called the Daisy Room at the time of the earthquake, and she was trapped. Her servants were eventually able to free her, but it did have a significant impact on her, and she felt that the spirits were possibly giving her a message. She had become too maybe proud and the lavish renovations that she had done on the house. So she just ended up boarding up part of the house, and that really was an integral part of the tour, actually. And it was very creepy to just come into areas that were obviously damaged and were left that way.
I mean, talk about fuel for nightmares, Camp Nightmare fuel, being trapped in a room and you think the evil spirits are, if it's true. And like I said, it sounds like they had been boarded up since 1902 and they just undid it in 2016.
To that, because I know that they actually talked about a little bit about that on the tour, and that she was trapped and she was well loved. I mean, beloved by all of the workers and all of her servants. She must have been an amazing lady, because I mean, they, during or after that earthquake, they were very, very worried trying to get at her, but they were able to find her and get her out, and she was well. But yeah, I don't recall any more details. And I would say to the viewers, if you are interested in this kind of stuff, I'm telling you, do a little bit of research, make that a bucket list. If you're into historical, potentially haunted sites.
Honestly, to me, one of the most thought-provoking thing with the house was, and I don't know why this bugs me, like I want to figure this out. She had commissioned 2 stained glass windows from Tiffany's in the grand ballroom, which is also known as the $25,000 room because of how much was spent on the construction of it. And on these 2 stained glass windows are carved 2 phrases from 2 Shakespearean plays. One is Timon of Athens, and then the other is from Richard II. And they're 2 kind of disjointed phrases, and they're not in their entirety. So, with a fragmented sort of mysterious way that they are carved into the windows, it just led many to believe that there was a deeply personal and possibly spiritual meaning to Sarah herself. So the first phrase is, "These same thoughts people this little world." And that is from Timon of Athens. The second phrase is, "Wide unclasp the tables of their thoughts." And that is from the play Richard II. Now, these are not, as I said, these are not complete phrases, and they're not even commonly used that way. And so it really just lends to the aura of mystery, and for some reason it just bugs me so much that I want to know. I have written those words and tried to mix around, the order, and to try to see, is this an acronym maybe for something else? I don't know. It's just such a mystery that it just drives me crazy. Because Sarah never revealed, when no one has ever revealed what it means. If our listeners have any idea what this, if they've heard any theories, please let us know. Either contact us or let us know down in the comments, because I would love to hear your thoughts on what you think that, could have been the meaning behind what Sarah felt that she would have these phrases carved into her Tiffany stained glass windows. So do either of you have any final thoughts on this?
Other than I know people that have went there and had kind of creepy experiences with hairbrushing and see something move, catch shadows out of the sides of their eyes.
Yes.
But, the more notable ones where the girl had her ponytail yanked, turned around and was going to slap her husband, who was supposed to be behind her. He was actually off to her right.
Wow.
So
that's a good one. So what about you, Lord Starfox? What are your final thoughts? And you said you may have some fun information for us.
And this whole entire thing reminds me of H.H. Holmes, Herman Webster Mudgett, who was an American con artist and serial unaliver that was active in the 1800s in Chicago. He had this place known as the Castle, which he would hire all these different construction crews to come in and work on small little sectors and then bring in a new crew. And it was full of torture rooms and all these places where you would just disappear and no one would know. And he would specifically run deals for foreigners that you knew no one would be looking for. Yeah, that's some nightmare stuff.
Whoa. Yeah, definitely.
It just struck me, the irony of you're trying to confuse spirits from finding you, and you're trying to confuse entities from finding you, and then an earthquake happens, and now you've confused the rescuers from finding you.
Right? Good point. Very good point. Yeah. I was thinking too, Starfox, when you mentioned about series Supernatural and that Winchester being their last name, there was a prequel, but did you ever watch that series? That was, yeah, it was supposedly a prequel to Supernatural.
I did not. I finally just got caught up in the last maybe year and a half on the 18 seasons of Supernatural.
Yeah.
It took me about 12 years to watch them all. So, I mean, I did accomplish it, but no, I have not heard of it.
Yeah, because so I'm just wondering, and I want to finish. Yeah, I want to finish the series before I go to this prequel. I just saw it the other day on one of the streaming services, but I just wonder if there's a connection because of with the Winchesters. Maybe not, but it could be. Who knows?
It's an interesting theory, which I could literally just look up, but I choose to just kind of wonder about it. So with that, we will conclude tonight's episode of the Winchester House. If you have enjoyed this, please give it a like and please subscribe to all 3 of our channels. We will be bringing you much, much more content that is fuel for your nightmares. So for me and my fellow camp counselors, have a great night. Thank you for supporting us.